Hello, I am Janet Mayled and I've been asked to create a painting based on the Victoria building in Blackburn, which was built in, well, they put the stone down in 1888 and opened in 1889. And I'm sure many of you know that fabulous building with the lovely red facade. And my aim is to create a full imperial painting which will reflect the heritage of the area and the study that went on within the building. So I'm going to lead you through my process through a series of stages. Unfortunately, as we all know, we're in lockdown and we can't actually paint outside this year. Normally I would like to paint outside, but I'm sitting within my studio within my home. Which is a lot warmer and cosier, but I do enjoy painting outside and getting the spontaneity. So the ground I'm going to work on today is hot press watercolour paper, which is 300 GSM, which means that it's a heavy paper and it doesn't distort when you work into it. It's got a lovely smooth surface, which I like as the paint glides over the top. And I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. I use a range of different brands. I don't particularly stick to one particular one. And my also hope is I'm going to add some collage into the surface, which is going to have images of sort of technical instruments that again will reflect that heritage. It won't be obvious, but they will add to the surface and hopefully add a different quality, but you'll see that as we go along. So if you want to try this at home, as I say, I'm using heavy watercolour paper, but you can try it on any ground you have. I'm using a range of brushes. Again, I don't stick to one particular brand. But what I do want is different sizes, so I can work quite quickly at the beginning with larger brushes and then going down to smaller brushes for more detail as I go through the process. I use a palette. Today I'm just using these tear-off palettes, but you can use a plate which has got a nice smooth surface, and water to start, but also using some matte medium later. I will put on the pictures that I'm working from so you can see what I'm working from as well, and hopefully I'll be able to show you from beginning to end. So on my palette I have put the primary colours and also titanium white. So on the left I've got titanium white, cadmium yellow, Windsor blue and cadmium red. Getting the background in. So once you've laid out the basic shapes, then you're thinking about putting the detail in, and I'm using thicker paint to lay out the structure of the building. So this colour is a little bit of titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and then just a touch of the cobalt blue to make a sort of green brown. I'm adding to the front of the building. Give you a quick look at my setup. So here I've got my computer up on my trolley, which has got my paints on, and then here is my easel, and you can see that now I've put some more colour, I've added some layers. You're starting to get some form and shape into the buildings. We've got a chap crossing the road here, beginnings of a road sign, and the start of the details onto the building, but as yet no real detail. But we've got the perspective on the building on the right hand side, and at this stage I've filled the paper full of colour and got a plan of what I'm going to do, but yet to add the depth to it. I've also printed off here on my lap, you can see I've got some printouts of the logo for the college, which I'm hoping to add into the surface of the gentleman's jacket and possibly into the building in the background. And then into the windows I'm going to add some technical pieces, such as this, which I'm going to tear. I'm not going to cut, but tear and start putting into the surface. So I'm going to start doing that now. I'm just going to use PVA to add to it, and you'll see me adding that to the surface. Then I'm going to paint again onto the surface. This is something you could do right at the beginning. You don't have to do it at this stage, but I like to do it once I've plotted everything out. For carvings into the building, I'm just going to add in maybe this one, which is quite a nice technical drawing, into the arches which are above the windows, just tearing that into a sort of half moon shape. And it's going to go here. The PVA it will dry clear, so that's good, and with the paint on top it will hold it down nice and firmly. Just going to curve, do these lovely arches too on here. So just continuing. I like the arrows that we've got on these, giving the structure. Wibbly wobbly, that one. Oh, this is lovely. So here you can see the detail of the collage of technical instruments within the surface, and also down into the sign and the background there of the Blackburn logo, and also into the top of the gentleman crossing. And if we go to the right, I've also put these sections in which are going to add into that road surface. Start by adding now to the foreground the surface of the road, and I want to mix up a nice range of greys. So I'm using some of the titanium white, and I'm going to add a touch of cobalt blue, and a touch of the fluorescent yellow and a touch of the fluorescent red too. So again, on my palette I have the primaries. I've got titanium white on the left, cadmium yellow, Windsor blue in the middle, and then the cadmium red. Below the white I have got cobalt blue, and then to the right cardinal red. And on the very bottom row I've got a fluorescent yellow and a fluorescent yellow. What I'm wanting to do is add the surface, just draw it. So drag my brush over some of these bits of collage that I have put on. Right, so now I'm going to be starting to add some more detail. What I'm wanting on this side is add in the top of the boarding to the building site, and with the orange coming this way, because you want to be able to link. What I want is the building not to stand out, and it does stand out as a whole, but I want it to fit better into the composition so that it doesn't overpower it too much. So that's quite a strong, bright red, and I want it more towards the orange side. I'm just going to add a bit more yellow and a touch of the titanium white, and then I want it to go on the top of the building here. Well, it's not the building, it's a board, I should say, and that is going to go there, and also along the bottom. I'm going to take some of those oranges into the calves of the chap crossing the road, and this is going to link then with the rest of the composition. And what I do with my colour is I want to use the colour that I use into the flesh tones, into the barriers, so that they give a link throughout the composition. I'm just working on the structure of this. At the moment I'm just using the acrylic nice and thick, just a touch of water just to help it move around onto the paper. I'm quite a fine brush now, so I'm putting the detail into the struts on these fabulous fluorescent orange barriers. And it's going to be a little bit brighter in the foreground. Added a little bit of that fluorescent paint into it, because things in the foreground should be brighter and things in the background should be less bright, so that they recede, giving a sense of perspective using colour. So not only using the line of the buildings, but also your colour. As you know, you won't be able to see those colours with such clarity, and you want them to dim as they go into the distance. I'm not going to be able to see struts on it, it'll just become a shape as they curve around this corner. And so you're going to be starting working into this building and adding more detail. We can't see the fabulous carvings from this distance either, so it's just a suggestion of what is going on those fronts. My aim isn't to create an architectural drawing, but a feeling of what it was like to be there, a suggestion of the building. So I'm not counting how many windows there are or slats and thinking how absolutely perfect it is, otherwise you might do yourself in a little bit. And especially if you're working you're having to record in a speedy manner, especially if you're painting outside. And with the Paint the Town at home, you've only got a day to produce your piece of work. Saying that, we want to produce a piece of work that suggests spontaneity as if you were outside. So it isn't absolutely precise. You can be quite forgiving to yourself. Put those cones onto the floor by giving them a base with a little bit of pale brown round the bottom. Quite pleased with how these technical bits are coming through the floor. I'm just going to add some of that brown into this surface as well. And these lines, it's most probably from all the traffic it's seen over the years. Some worn markings will also help to guide the viewer through the painting. Into the pattern on his shirt, add a little bit of orange, and it does have a pattern on the shirt and the base, some structure. Again, my black is a little bit of blue and a little bit of red to create a really dark tone. As I said before, I use black very sparingly. Occasionally I'll do it, but normally I'm mixing a black because I want it to lift rather than, it says gate 2 on this. Yeah, lift it rather than dull it. Just define his shoulders. If you're recording outside, you're not going to get absolute details. You're just going to catch snippets of people crossing the road, and you want to catch that sense of movement. And it would have been the same with a car if we had a car crossing here. Some hair, seems to have lost it. Windows into the building behind. So using lots of different layers of grey, and I keep building these layers to create depth. When I'm not painting outside and I paint in the studio, I can spend many hours adding and layering to add depth. And as I come towards the end of it, I'm going to show you how I use matte medium to create glazes on top of the surface, and I'm hoping that this will make these red bricks really shine, and that will be in the next segment.